Have you ever found yourself needing absolute silence just to focus? Well, you are definitely not alone. But have you ever wondered why? Why do some of us crave total quiet while others can work through what feels like a hurricane? We're about to dive into the fascinating science of what's actually happening in your brain when you need to shut out the world to get stuff done. And that brings us to the big question, right? Is needing all that quiet a sign that you're just easily distracted? Or could it point to something much more powerful about the way your mind is wired? It's time to seriously challenge that old assumption. So, first up, let's just tear down this myth of being oversensitive. Because if you're someone who prefers silence, you've probably been hit with a few, let's call them labels. And we're about to see why they might be completely, totally wrong.
Does any of this sound familiar? Antisocial? Difficult? Oh, you're just too sensitive. For the longest time, these were the go-to explanations. But you know what? Neuroscience is starting to tell a completely different and way more interesting story.
Okay, so to really get why some of us need silence, we've got to talk about your brain's bandwidth, or as scientists call it, cognitive load. So, what on earth is cognitive load? Put simply, it's the total amount of brain power you're using at any given moment. It's your mental horsepower, all the effort being used in your working memory for whatever you're trying to do. Honestly, the best way to picture this is to think about your computer's RAM. You know that feeling when you have way too many browser tabs open at once? Everything starts to lag, it gets slow, maybe it even crashes. Well, guess what? Your brain works in a remarkably similar way. And here is the real kicker. Every single background noise, that colleague's phone call, the constant hum of the printer, even somebody's keyboard clicking away, every one of those is another tab that your brain has to keep open and process. And each one eats up a little bit of that precious mental RAM.
So, if our brains are constantly getting bombarded with all these open tabs, how do we ever get anything done? Well, that leads us right to our next idea, the brain's built-in, but as you'll see, sometimes overworked, noise filter. This filter has a scientific name. It's called cognitive inhibition. You can think of it as your brain's own personal bouncer, or maybe a really good spam filter. It's the mental process that's constantly working to tune out all the irrelevant stuff so you can actually focus on what matters.
And this right here is the absolute key to everything. For some of us, that filtering process isn't automatic. It's not happening effortlessly in the background. No, it requires a lot more conscious effort. That brain bouncer has to work overtime, and all that extra work burns through a ton of your mental energy, the exact same energy you're trying to use for your main task. So let's walk through it. A sound comes in. Your brain's filter has to engage to try and block it. Your focus gets directed to your task. But if that filter has to work too hard for too long, you hit cognitive overload. The whole system just kind of crashes, just like that computer with way too many tabs open. All right, let's put all the pieces together now, because this isn't about being easily distracted, not at all. This is the moment where we reframe this entire conversation. We're going to flip it from being about a weakness into a really unique kind of strength, the power of deep processing. Look at this. It's a complete 180. The old way of thinking was, oh, you're easily distracted. The new view, backed by science, it's actually high focus. What we called sensitive to noise is really deep processing. And being told you can't multitask, that gets reframed as being a single tasking expert. It's a total shift in perspective. And this quote it nails it. A high sensitivity to noise isn't a flaw. It's an indicator of a brain wired for deep thought. You see, it's not a bug, it's a feature. It means your brain isn't weak, it's just trying to dedicate all of its resources to thinking very, very deeply about one single thing. So the most important thing to take away is this. If you struggle with noise, it is not some kind of personal failing. It's a neurological byproduct. It just means your brain is naturally built to dive deep into information, and to do that properly, it needs to clear the decks of all that other sensory stuff. Okay, so what does this all mean for us in the real world? In practice, let's break down the key takeaways for how we can start rethinking our work and, just as important, our work environments. So let's quickly recap the big ideas here. First, and this is huge, needing silence is a neurological trait. It's not just you being picky, it's wired into how your brain works. Second, that trait is directly linked to an incredible capacity for deep, super focused work. And finally, getting this isn't just about making you feel validated. It's absolutely vital for creating workplaces where every single type of thinker can actually do their best work. And that really leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. Knowing all of this, knowing our brains can be wired so differently, how can we start being more intentional about designing our offices, our homes, our schools, and our study spaces to support not just one type of thinker, but every type? It's a really important question, and it's probably worth thinking about in a nice, quiet room.